Students, in this video session, I'll be giving you introduction about current electricity and some information regarding how to find out current and as well as drift velocity of an electron. We will be doing that in this video lecture. As we have completed capacitance, electrical capacitance, most of the topics which we have discussed in electrical capacitance can be repeated in current electricity. So it's mandatory to revise capacitance chapter to be thorough with current electricity. So there are you can study about electrical charges in two different chapters. One is based on the charges which are at rest, and it is known as static electricity. Static electricity deals with electric charges which are in rest. Static mean rest. Whereas in case of current electricity, name itself, current mean motion. Static mean rest, current mean motion. Static electricity deals with charges which are at rest position, and important topics in static electricity are force. We have learnt about this: electric force, electric field, electric potential, and electric potential energy, and electric dipole. These are the things which we have already learnt in static electricity. So whenever there are two or more charges present at one particular point, in that case they will be experiencing force, corresponding that they will have field, potential, electric potential energy, and there will be electric dipole constitute because of static charges. So these about their effects and the information regarding these all things has been done already in static electricity chapter. Now coming to current electricity, name itself tells you current. Current means motion. Here we will be discussing about charge which is in motion. So as in the static electricity, we did not talk about motion of the charge. But whereas in current electricity, we will learn that charge is in motion throughout the conductor, and what are the effects of charge which is in motion. So that all their effects will be discussed in this chapter. Like moving charges, what are their effects? In how many ways? Like we have static charges, they have effects like force, field, potential energy, dipole. These all are effects of static charges. Likewise, charges which are in motion will also produce some kind of effects, and those effects can be basic effect is electric current. It produces electric current. It produces magnetic fields. And it produces heat effects. It produces heating effects, and it also produces electromagnetic waves, and it can even produce energy, right? So about these things individually we will be learning about all these things. Moving charges, the effect of moving charges are electric current, and it will produce magnetic fields, and it will produce heat effects, and it will produce electromagnetic waves. Of course, electromagnetic waves are produced by accelerating electrons. That is separate chapter. We will be discussing about that in separate chapter. So these are the effects of electric charge which is in motion. So first we will be learning in this chapter only about electric current, and remaining all chapters are dedicated with moving effects of charges which are in motion. So next three chapters we have a part of current electricity. In those chapters we will be learning about moving effects of electrical charge itself. So in this chapter, we will be dedicating ourselves only to find out effects of electric current, right? So as name itself indicate, current electricity mean that charges are in motion. The study of effects of moving charges is discussed under current electricity. And we know that flow of free electrons in a particular direction constitute an electric current or current electricity. So when you are taking any conductor, and if you are providing some potential difference to that, moving charges like charges can be able to flow. Those charges which are able to flow in particular direction constitute electric current. And that's what we are going to learn in this chapter in detail. We have been already learned, whenever you are dealing with electric charges, in some conductors, like in some materials, charges are able to flow. In some materials, charges does not flow. Like we have already been classified about conductors and dielectrics. So dielectrics are also known as insulators. They does not allow electric charges to pass through. They are even called as non-conductors. So based on electrical conductivity, based on how charges are able to flow through through a material, you can classify them into three different types. They are conductors, insulators, and semiconductors. Conductors are those materials which have low resistance and which allows electric charge to flow. So electric charge in case of conductors are able to flow. Example of conductors are copper, silver, gold, aluminum, and nickel. These all offer very less resistance and they have high conductivity. And all these comes under metals. So conductors are purely, you can tell it as they are metals. Coming to insulators, insulators have high resistance which suppress electric current flow. That means that does not allow electric charge to flow readily. They will offer some high resistance for flow of electric charge. Example of insulators are glass, ceramic, plastics, wood. They offer very high resistance. Of course, insulators, solid insulators are glass, ceramic, plastic, wood, etc. And of course, gases are also insulators. They too does not allow electric charge to pass through them at normal pressure. But there are some materials, like even in insulators also, there are few materials. In insulators, there are few materials where they allow electric charge to flow at high temperatures, at low pressures. At low pressures, like under some external conditions, at low pressures and high potential difference, some insulating materials will allow electric charge to flow. Those materials are called non-conductors, or they are even called as dielectrics. Dielectrics will allow electric charge to flow under very high potential difference. Very high potential difference, it should be of order 10 power 5, very large value. So usually for electric current, we will not be selecting these kind of materials. For electric current to flow, we will be selecting always metals. In case of metals, there will be free electrons. As there comes, metals are inbuilt with metallic bonding. In case of metallic bonding, there will be free electrons and there are ions possible in conductors. We will discuss that in the coming sessions. Coming to semiconductors, semiconductors allow electric charge to flow, like they can allow or suppress electrical current flow. And semiconductors example are carbon, silicon, germanium, arsenic, phosphorus, These all are examples of semiconductors. Like semiconductors are those materials whose conductivity lies between conductors and insulators. At external conditions, semiconductors can behave as conductors, whereas in some cases they behave as insulators. So semiconductors conductivity varies in between conductors and insulators. So about semiconductors, we will be discussing in a separate chapter in class 12th, and at that time I'll be teaching you about all properties of semiconductors, how they behave like insulators and conductors at different conditions. And about insulators, we need not bother about this in this chapter, because we are only dealing with electric current and charges flow. So we will be learning about conductors in detail in this chapter, and then we will define electric current in conductors. Students, as I already told you, those materials which allow electric charge to flow are said to be as conductors. And conductors are metals. Remember, all metals are good conductors. All metals are good conductors of electricity. They generally allow electric charge to flow. Now, why they are behaving as good conductors? Why some materials are behaving as bad conductors, like they does not allow electric charge to flow through them? Some are good conductors, some are bad conductors. Bad conductors are also called non-conductors or insulators or dielectrics. Why there is such classification? That is based on metallic bonding. So what actually happens is, in case of solids, there is strong bonding. As in case of solids, there is strong bonding. Strong bonding results in overlapping of outermost orbitals. Outermost orbitals of atoms. So like if I take one conductor, like if I take a conductor, you have one atom here, and there will be another atom here, and there will be another atom here. Like the outermost orbital get overlapped with each other. Outermost orbitals of these get overlapped with each other. Outermost orbital of this atom, and outermost orbital of this atom, and outermost orbital of this atom, outermost orbital of this atom. Like as they are strong bonded, what would happen? The outermost orbitals, see, we have atom where there is nucleus, and electrons will be revolving around the nucleus, right? And this is 1s electron, 2s, 1s, 2s, 2p, like that. We have shells and subshells. The outermost electrons, like these are valence electrons, these outermost electrons of all the atoms get overlapped with each other because of their strong bonding. So as a result, one of the electron from one atom, like suppose if I take this electron of this atom, it, as this is like if I take copper, here is copper atom, here is copper atom, here is copper atom, here is copper atom, and here is also copper atom. The outermost orbital energy of all these copper atoms is equal. Therefore, one electron from the outermost orbital of this copper can readily enter into another outermost orbital of copper. And electron of this copper can even enter into the other orbital of this copper. So like that, if I take one atom and the other atom, this is copper and this is also copper, one electron of this copper atom can get overlap with outermost orbitals of both these, and it can even revolve around this copper atom also, because energy of this and energy of this are equal because both are copper. As a result, what would happen? There is no fixed orbital for these electrons around any particular copper. It is their wish, they can move in any orbital because they get overlapped with each other. Such, because of strong bonding, all these electrons form electron cloud. They form electron cloud in case of metals. So after formation of electron cloud, those all electrons can move in any particular direction in that particular conductor. Like in metal, see this dislocated electrons. See, this is copper atom. Like for example, I am considering this as copper atom. This is copper atom. From this copper atom, one electron is been coming to the other. Like that, all these copper atoms, they lost their outermost electron because of strong bonding. And these all outermost electrons form electron clusters or electron clouds, where these electrons are free to move throughout this conducting material. Therefore, in case of metals, there exist free electrons. There exist free electrons. Free electrons can move in random direction. They do not have specific direction. They are able to move freely and randomly in any possible direction in this electron cloud. In this electron cloud region, anywhere these electrons can move. So such free electrons are responsible. Such free electrons are responsible for conduction. If there are no free electrons, then electrons are not able to move freely. Then in such cases, they become valence electron or bounded electrons. Bounded electrons are forced to move only in specific directions, and that too around that particular atom. So if there are no free electrons, electrons could not move freely. As a result, conduction is not possible. So in metals, such free electron clouds are possible because of their metallic bonding, and these free electrons are responsible for conduction. Usually in metals, there will be 10 power 28 number of electrons per 1 meter cube. This is called electron density. This is called electron density. Usually for metals, in the region of 1 meter cube, there will be 10 power 28 number of electrons, and this is an approximate value. It can be even greater than that also. So electron density is of nearly 10 power 28 order per 1 meter cube in case of metals. Whereas in insulators, it will be of order 10 power 18 per meter cube. So 1 meter cube has only a value of 10 power 18 order. This many number of electrons will be there, but they are bounded. As a result, insulators remain insulators. So electron cloud does not form in insulators, and electrons are not free to move. If electrons are not free to move, they are bounded. You cannot move that electron by giving very small amount of energy. Therefore, insulators remain insulators. In conductors, as there are free electrons, they are responsible for conduction. They move randomly in all possible directions. Therefore, electron density in case of metals is very large. It is of 10 power 28 per meter cube, and all these electrons get accommodated only on surface of metals. On surface of metals. Generally, this electron cloud will be formed on surface. So therefore, free charges are able to be accommodated only on surface of the given conductor. So that is how we can classify metals and non-metals, or conductors and non-conductors, by motion of electric charge in this chapter. So you need to remember that for conductors, there will be free electrons, and those free electrons are able to move randomly in all possible directions, which make conduction possible. Therefore, they are called conductors. Whereas in other solids, such free electrons would not be there, and there may be bonded electrons, and those electrons are not able to move freely as like in case of conductors. Therefore, they remain as non-conductors or insulators. Students, now let me define what is meant by electric current and how does electric current is non-zero in case of conductors. I'll show you how it is. Let me take a conducting wire. I'm considering a wire. This is conducting wire. It is a wire. And let us, as I am considering it is conducting wire, you can take it as copper or nickel or aluminum or gold, any conducting wire, right? And as I already told you, when you are dealing with electric conductors, in conductors, electrons are able to move freely and randomly in all possible directions. Therefore, electron can move in this direction, electron can move in this direction, electrons can move in this direction. Electrons can move any possible direction, like these arrows represent motion of the electrons in case of conductors. So electrons are able to move randomly in all possible directions. So as a result, what would happen? Suppose if one electron is moving, it will produce some current, like the effect of motion of one electron is nullified by the effect of motion of other electron. So as a result, what would happen? Net flow. Instead of net flow, let me first tell you. See, whenever as there is a conducting wire, in this conducting wire, charges are able to move freely. So moving charges produce current. This is one thing. Moving charges produce current, and you can calculate that current I as time rate of flow of charge. So I can be written as Q divided by T, where Q is equal to NE divided by T. This is what current means. So whenever there is a moving charge, like as I already told you, in case of conductors, electrons are free to move. When electrons are freely moving, each electron which is moving in this conductor will produce current, and that is rate of flow of charge is said to be as current. I is equal to Q by T, where Q is the total amount of charge flowing in the conductor. Q is equal to NE. Now, as we already know that charge is being conserved in nature and charge is quantized. Therefore, when this charge is able to flow, like all these electrons, they move randomly in all possible directions. Therefore, let me consider one electron here. This electron will produce some current, say I1. Exactly moving opposite to that, there is one more electron here, right? This is also will produce current whose magnitude is minus I1. Likewise, there is one electron here. This and this get nullified with each other. Likewise, for every one electron which is moving along positive x-axis, there will be another electron which move in opposite direction. As a result, I net will be equal to I1 minus I1 plus I2 minus I2, so on. Therefore, net current in case of conductor will be equal to 0 conductor. So what happens in case of conductor? When you are taking a pure conductor, all the electrons are randomly moving. Each electron which is in motion will produce some electric current. And as a result, the net current within this get nullified by each other. So one electron which move along positive x-axis will be, its effect will be nullified by the other electron which is moving along negative x-axis. As a result, net current in a conductor becomes 0. Therefore, all conductors are electrically neutral. Electrically neutral in the sense they are not charged. Q net will be equal to 0 and I net will be equal to 0. There exists no current, no net charge and no net current within a conductor initially. Like if you are not providing any external effects, any conducting wire, if you touch it, you does not get electrified, because net charge within that conducting material will be equal to 0. Equal amount of positive and negative charges exist. And net current in that will be equal to 0, because effect of motion of one electron get nullified with the effect of motion of other electron, which is moving in opposite direction. So that is how net current in case of any conductor will become 0. Then how does this current come from for a conducting wire? Now what I do, I'll take one battery and I'll connect it to two ends of the conductor. Okay. So when I provide battery is the source. It is energy source. It is energy source. It stores chemical energy, and that chemical energy get converted into electrical energy. Because of that, like this battery will offer some potential difference, and because of this potential difference, there exist or there setups electric field from positive to negative terminal. This is electric field E, and because of this electric field, all these electrons will experience a force. Because of that force, they are drifted in one particular direction. As a result, I net is not equal to 0 for a conductor when connected with a battery. So when you are connecting a battery for this conductor, what would happen? Instead of random motion, all electrons are able to flow freely in specific direction only. That is the reason why net current become not equal to 0 in case of a conductor. So, and how do you calculate this net current? I net will be equal to charge flow within this particular conductor per unit time. You can write it as delta Q divided by delta T, or you can even write it as NE divided by T, where NE is total amount of charge flowing, N is number of electrons or electron density, E is charge of the electron, right? And what about the unit of this net current? Charge unit is coulomb, time unit is second, coulomb per second is called ampere, right? So unit of electric current is ampere. Its symbol is capital A. 1 coulomb of charge flowing through 1 unit second within a conductor will produce 1 ampere of current. That is how the current in a conductor become non-zero if and only if it is being connected with any battery. Unless it is connected with an external battery, current within the net conductor will be equal to 0. Now come to definition of electric current, which I already have discussed. So when there is a transfer of charge from one side of an area to the other, we say that there is an electric current through the area. If the moving charges are positive, current is in the direction of motion. If they are negative, the current is in opposite direction to the motion. And if charge delta Q crosses unit area in unit time delta T, we define average electric current through that area as I, which is delta Q by delta T. And this is average current. Average current is I, which is delta Q divided by delta T, where delta Q is the total amount of charge flowing through unit cross-sectional area per 1 second. Remember that. And I can write limit delta T tending to 0, delta Q divided by delta T. It is written as dQ divided by dt. And what is this dQ by dt called? dQ by dt is called instantaneous current. It is called instantaneous current. Delta Q upon delta T is average current. dQ upon dt is instantaneous current. Instantaneous current is per one, like at particular instant of time, what is current in the conductor is called as instantaneous current. Whereas average current is within some particular time. You will be taking a time limit 0 to 10 seconds. What is the net flow of charge? It is called average current. Average current and instantaneous current, they are similar to like average velocity and instantaneous velocity, which you will learn in kinematics. And remember, whenever there is, like in some conductors, if the area of cross section is variable, the charge flow is also variable. Let me check. Now, let me tell you, let me make it clear. I am considering a conductor like this. Okay. The area of cross section initially at this position, it is this much. This is the area of cross section here. And whereas coming to this, it is area of cross section here. I can now say area of cross section here is A and area of cross section here is A. Capital A is greater than small a. As area of cross section is increased, what would happen? The free electron number would also be increased here. Free electron number would be increased throughout this area of cross section. Right? There are more number of free electrons. Number of free electrons is greater here. Coming to this area of cross section, there are less number of electrons passing through this area of cross section. Less number. So all the electrons which are coming from this larger area of cross section, they get squeezed when they are coming to this smaller area of cross section. However, remember, charge is being conserved. Total amount of charge flowing through this area of cross section and total amount of charge flowing through this area of cross section is same. Time will be varied. Remember that. So charge flow at this larger area of cross section will be varied with respect to time when it comes from here capital A area to small a area. Therefore, in this case, charge flow varies with time. Therefore, we define instantaneous current. In such cases, instantaneous current can be simply written as I equal to dq by dt, which is variable. Rate of flow of charge, like with respect to time, it is variable. In such cases, charge depends upon time. Okay, charge flow depends on time. As time increases, charge flow can be increased or decreased. That depends upon the equation which is governing the charge flow. Now let me show you one example. Here we have Q is equal to 2t square plus 3. Now Q of t, that means it is variable with respect to time, as 2t square plus 3. If t is equal to 0, charge flow is 3. That means at t is equal to 0 second, Q is equal to 3 coulomb. At t is equal to 1 second, charge flow Q will be equal to 5 coulomb. Whereas t is equal to 2 second, charge flow Q will be equal to 2 square is 4, 4 2 is 8, 8 plus 3, 11 coulomb. What is happening here? Charge is variable with respect to time. Charge flow varies with respect to time. In such cases, you can find out instantaneous current. At what particular time you have what current, you can find out using the expression I is equal to dq by dt. Just differentiate this expression, 2 into 2t plus 0. So net current I will be equal to 4t ampere. You are supposed to find out net current at t is equal to 2 seconds. Just substitute 2 here. So I will be equal to 8 ampere at 2 seconds. At 2 second, current flowing through this conductor is 8 ampere. So remember, charge flow is not being constant in case of some conductors. It can be variable with respect to time. If it is variable with respect to time, then instead of calculating average current, you can even find out instantaneous current also. Instantaneous current and average current are not equal. Their magnitudes may be varied. That's important point you need to understand. Students, you should get my point. Like, we are dealing now with current density. Let me take this area of cross section as capital A or A1. Here area of cross section A2. A1 is obviously greater than A2. The charge which is flowing through this region 1 and region 2 will be equal because charge is conserved. But the time taken to cross over here in the region 1 and time taken to cross over here in the region 2, they are not same. In region 1, it take less time, whereas in region 2, it take greater time to cross that charge. As we know that current I is equal to Q by T. So we have different areas of cross section for a conductor. Like, this is area of cross section A1 and this is area of cross section A2. You have a conductor of uneven cross sectional area. Whatever charge is flowing through this area of cross section, same charge should flow here. So charge Q1 and charge Q2. Q1 magnitude will be equal to Q2 magnitude. Remember that charge is being conserved. Whatever the charge is flowing through this area of cross section, in the area of cross section A1, same charge should flow here also. But remember, the current which is coming over here in region A and in region 2, it is not same because it varies with respect to time. Charge in this region 1 flow in some particular time, say T1, and in this case, in the region 2, charge flow in different time, T2. Therefore, current here is I1, you can write it as Q1 divided by T1. Current in this case, you can write it as I2, which is equal to Q2 divided by T2. Q1 and Q2 are however same because charge is always conserved in the universe. So what would happen now? Current flow is not same in region 1 and in region 2. Therefore, in order to handle with these kind of situations, we will be dealing with current density. We will be dealing with current density. Current density is denoted with J. Current density can be defined as current flowing through unit cross-sectional area. J is equal to Q by A, or you can write it as, what is I? I is equal to Q divided by T into area of cross-section. So current density, remember, it is a vector quantity because very small areas of cross-section are treated to be vectors. Current is scalar. Current is scalar, whereas current density is vector. Current is a scalar, current density is vector. So current density is simply defined as rate of current flow or current flowing per unit cross-sectional area. How much amount of current is flowing through one particular area of cross-section? It is known as current density. Now, as we know, definition for current density, J is equal to I by A, right? J is, or you can write it as I is equal to J into A, right? So I is proportional to A, where J is equal to current density. J is equal to current density. Therefore, current is directly proportional to area of cross section. That means greater area of cross section will have greater current. Smaller area of cross section will have smaller current. So in this region 1, you will be getting I1, and in this region, you will be getting I2. Clearly, I1 is greater than I2, right? So Abdul, your answer for your question is this: I1 is greater than I2. I is directly proportional to A. That's what you are able to see from current density. Remember, current density is a vector quantity. We are dealing with area of cross section. Area of cross section, very small area of cross section or elemental areas of cross sections are vectors. So J bar you need to always represent it with. And current is a scalar, current density is vector. If it is instantaneous current, how do you write? I can be written as integration of J into dA. Okay, so as I is scalar, you can take it as J bar and A bar, that is dot product of current density and area of cross section gives you electric current. Fine. So that is the definition of current density. We will see some applications in the next video lecture from current density.